kind of ways to get around, little devious things to do. One of the things was there was a payphone downstairs next to the kitchen. I don't know if some of you may not know what a payphone is. But anyway, it hung on the wall, you know, big black thing with a cradle for the receiver on the side. And it was a payphone, so you had to put money in. But, you know, like, nobody had any money. So we discovered that you could just pick it up. And it was a dial phone, and, you know, I don't know if anybody's seen a dial phone, but when you turn the dial around, it goes blip, 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 to the whatever number, you know, however far you pulled it over. And so it went from 0 to 1 to 0, 1 to 10, basically, 1 to 0. And so we found out that you could just pick up the receiver, and then you could bat the hook switch at an even tempo for the number you were dialing. So you go like, you know, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can make free calls. But the telephone company got wind of that. And so I guess a lot of people were doing it. So they changed their methods of doing it. And then there was they changed it to, you had to have a tone to go through the system. And so, I'm trying to remember what kind of cereal it was, but there was Captain Crunch, yeah. Maybe, I don't know. And they have a little whistle in there. And we found out that if you taped up one of the holes, the 3 holes in the whistle, you can make the notes that would trigger the long distance dialing system. And you could call all around the world just by blowing this little whistle. Because they couldn't tell if the phone was making the whistle or the whistle was making the whistle. Anyway, let's see, some other things. There was a guy, there were a lot of drugs sold here.
Where are they now?
And I knew that if I was ever questioned, I could provide information to bust up a lot of different people. So I studiously avoided hearing anything that was said in my presence about drugs and things. But there was this one guy who was a radio personality in town, and he basically befriended some of the people in the Red Herring, and turned out he was a narcotics guy, and he busted one guy. But then he was very full of himself, and he grandstanded, and he went out and I think he went on a TV station, and he basically was full of self-aggrandizement. Do we know any people like that? And he spilled the beans about how he was cleaning up the whole town, getting rid of all these things. And well, if there are any dogs downstream from drinking the water coming out of the sewage treatment plant down there, they probably got really high. Let's see. There was a lot of art downstairs. It's been painted over now, but there was a lot of interesting art, like in the war room down there, which I don't know, is it the War and Peace room now? I don't know. But anyway, that room down. Huh? Tolstoy, okay. Oh, War and Peace, okay, I get it. There was this wall what the east wall was white when we got the place, and so somebody decided to paint it, and they painted all these red patterns on there, and the red patterns it was a map of the female land ownership in Champaign County. So I don't know if anybody knows that, for very few people, but anyway, that's what it was. My phone is letting it go here. This is all my memory, just like everybody else's. There was on the door over here, there was a maze painted on with a dove in the middle, so it was the finding the way to peace. There was a post, one of the posts down here had all kinds of flowers and everything on it, but it had a circular sentence around it that said, reality is that which is, and then it started over again. And I've seen people walk around there like 3 times. Reality is that which is, reality is which. And there is a door down just to the left of the serving counter down there that led into the furnace room. And so I painted on the door, I painted this big lettering saying Fornax, which is the Latinized name of a constellation, one of the minor constellations in the sky, for Fornax the furnace. And so there's a lot of interesting constellations up there. There's Antley of the air pump and other ones that are modern ones that they put in just to fill up the spaces that were dark and between the known constellations, because they had to get everything in the constellation. So people would, like the adolescent mind sees Fornax on the door. So the guys would come up to me and say, "What's that room there?" I would say, "You can have it for $15 an hour." Go check it out, So they go open the door, and here's this dirty old furnace. It was fun. Yeah, we had a lot of humor. Probably the old guys around here will remember that there was a lot of humor down there, and probably they're embarrassed to remember it because a lot of it was really not PC. It probably would have been PC if PC had been a thing back then, but this was ancient times. I had an old Buick car. It was a 56 Buick that had belonged to my grandfather, and I my parents inherited from when he died, and then I got it after they were done with it. And it was a big old monster, heavy-duty car, sedan, and it was out in the parking lot, and people would just come to me and say, "Can I borrow your car?" And it was kind of rude to ask them about details. So I would just hand them the keys, and and they would, and the car would go, and then come back, and I asked people to put gas in it, and so it'd come back, and I'd go out there and when I needed the car, and hopefully it would be there. But this one time, I let it, I gave the people the keys, and they took the car, and then it didn't come back, and it didn't come back, and about a week later, it was like, "Where's my car?" And they said, "Oh, we'll get it back to you." And I think it was about 2 weeks till they finally brought it back. And I didn't find out till really later that they had crashed up the car, and So then we had some like motorheads and motorcycle heads around, downstairs hanging out, and they had fixed up my car, done all the body work and everything, and got it back. And I didn't even, I didn't really. It wasn't real clear because my brother had crashed up the same car, before I got it. So it had some cracks in the chrome and stuff. So anyway, that was the style of the red herring. Not to admit it. Yeah, I had a Morgan for a while too. Yeah, that was a cool car, right-hand drive and everything. Right-hand drive is kind of inconvenient because if you're behind a big truck, you got to pull out about halfway across the lane before you can see if anything's coming, which is a little inconvenient. All kinds of things here. This is just kind of random because the things that happened here were very random. Community radio. We have in around 69, I think, I was working at WPGU, which then was a much different station than it is now. Did classical music and stuff as well as rock during the day. But anyway, somebody came to town. I'm not quite sure, it was somebody from the Red Herring, but they went away. In those days, you couldn't just put everything online. You had to actually go because a lot of the information was controlled. Phones were expensive and unreliable for long distances, actually. So the most reliable thing, especially when there was a lot of a lack of press coverage and stuff like that, was to actually have somebody come from the place to the Red Herring to report on stuff. We had a thing called the Liberation News Service, which was a free service to newspapers, mostly campus newspapers, but they distributed to us because we had a lot of people coming through, and it was a mimeographed press reporting service. It was basically like indie media, reported on stuff that was happening around the country, of which there was a lot. There was all kinds of protests and things being blown up and and sit-ins and police riots and things like that. So people would keep coming downstairs and telling us about stuff that was going on all around the country. I just got in from San Francisco and this happened there. So it was kind of a clearinghouse of information, very exciting actually. We had lots of information going around. We also had lots of meetings here. One night I counted 10 meetings going on at the same time in this building. You can imagine it's not a gigantic building, but like those doors are closed and there were 4 meetings in this room, in the 4 corners of the room. There were people meeting on the stairs going down in the front there. It was crazy. But active, good in a good way, I guess.
The 60s?
Yeah, this was, I was here from 67 through 70, so it was during that time, yeah. Also some things that, we had all kinds of really interesting programs going on, and music, all kinds of good music. There's a bunch of my posters on the bulletin board at the bottom of the stairs there that I just saved. I get a pile of posters to distribute, and I just throw one in the box, and and the box just sat there, and I didn't actually even go through them until about 2 weeks ago. Like, that's how cluttered my house is. Box can sit there for 50 years and not get even up. Yeah, there's some interesting stuff in there. And I think I'm going to put them in one of the archives after a while here. But some other things that happened that probably people didn't know about. We did the women's counseling for the whole campus, basically. When people, when women would get into discrete problems, there weren't any other campus foundations or university functions that would deal with that. They wouldn't, if a woman was needing an abortion or just counseling or something, they would send them over here, and we had our we called her our house mother or something, but anyway, it was the religious, or the director of Channing Murray, a woman named Pern Smalley, later replaced by Odessa Earl, and they had they would basically had channels to go through to get things done and do counseling, and either refer the women or do the counseling themselves. So it was a pretty valuable service to the whole campus community that was too hot to touch after the McCarthy era. And actually a lot of the things here were too hot to touch. We had, there was a big, believe it or not, there was a whole campus-wide SDS convention, Students for Democratic Society. Yeah. They later became quite notorious, and they were kind of notorious when they had their convention here. But so it was kind of like the religious conventions that they used to have here over the break, like over winter break, and people would stay in all the dorms, and you'd come back to your dorm room and it would have a little cross on the wall. Some Bible verses. Well, this was SDS, and they didn't probably leave those things on the wall. But the headquarters for the convention was here. And it was a wild place, I'll tell you. I was awakened in the middle of the night one night, and the police were banging on my door. I was sleeping up in the room up there in the tower. And they said, "What do you know about this this attack?" there was some kind of an attack that went on, because there was a stream of blood going out of this room and down the stairs and out the back door and through the parking lot, and I was asleep. So I don't know whatever happened, if anybody knows what happened to that. But yeah, there were some scary things that went on here. A good thing that happened was, I don't know if people remember Senator Paul Simon, Simon Institute. He actually, when he was running to be state senator, we had like a testimonial dinner for him downstairs, and a big head table made out of those long trestle tables with paper tablecloth on and everything. And our minister at the time was Jack Taylor, and he's no relation to me, but he introduced himself as my father. And he was, like I was about 21 or 2 at that time, and he was about 10 years older. So he would have had to been pretty precocious. But a lot of people believed it because he kind of looked older. He was bald, and he was very scholarly, and he had dark horn-rimmed glasses and stuff like that. And I was like a hippie, so like it was believable, I guess. And a lot of people actually believed it for many years thereafter. So, so Paul Simon got a good start to his political career here at the Red Herring. Some things didn't come off as well, though. We had one of our lectures was on Esperanto, the universal language, and absolutely nobody showed up. It was like kind of me holding the hand of the poor guy who's showed up to deliver the talk, and probably which would have been sort of unintelligible since it was in Esperanto, I suppose. But it didn't matter because nobody showed up. And we also had a band that came over from Bloomington to play, and nobody showed up. That was kind of sad.
They weren't the last.
And I guess wow, I'm coming out right even on my notes here. I don't know. The one big thing that we had here was Jack Taylor, who had been the minister here, had gone down to Selma, Alabama, along with about half the Unitarian ministers for the civil rights stuff that was happening down there. And so he was very involved in that, and he actually got in trouble for that from the church because he was gone. He would be down there all during the week, and then he would come back up here to do the pulpit addresses. So he was one of the more involved campus people. And so when King was assassinated, they decided to hold a memorial service here, like the day after, the morning after. And actually it was about, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the afternoon that the service was supposed to be. And so that day I went, I don't know, I went out in the yard for some reason, and there was some people coming up the street here, and it turned out that it was the entire Uni High was coming here for the memorial service at like 10 a.m. And this street was, Matthew Street was full as far as I could see. I mean, like it was filled with all these students coming from Uni High. And so of course, we couldn't have them waiting around for 3 hours and stuff like that. So the ministers got together and, did a quickie, a quick memorial service for them. And then that was a premonition of what was going to happen. So I got all these amplifiers and speakers using my somewhat strange technical background, and just all this cobbled together, all these old things that were sitting around because I had junk around all the time. And we put speakers out in the yard, the front yard. We put them in the basement, and basically it was full. I mean, like it was jammed all the way around in the yard, and of course up here and everything. And it was a really moving ceremony. But a lot of people, some people got glimpses through the windows. Some people just had to hear it if they were downstairs. But it was a pretty touching event. And it's 8 o'clock. Time for the Red Herring to open. This is when I was learning the Red Herring, all those first weeks, their first years. This is when we opened, 8 o'clock. And we were open till either 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. So, yeah.
What was on the menu?
Huh?
What was on the menu?
Nickel coffee.
Nickel coffee.
Dime tea. And worth every penny.
Dime tea, yes. Donuts and Frito-Lay project. They have like chips and stuff, and lots of pop. We were the biggest user or seller of pop in bottles in the crate, wooden crates with glass bottles in the Twin Cities outside of. I mean, there were grocery stores that used more pop than we did, but we were behind the grocery stores. We were the biggest consumer of pop.
That's right.
It is a little different now. Just a little. So anyway, thank you very much.